In this video, we're going to talk about an aspect of the civil rights movement called sit-ins. Now, due to the Jim Crow laws in the 1960s, black people could pick up food from establishments that served whites, however, they most often could not actually sit inside them. Black people would also be served separately from whites. They were required to use different cutlery, different dishes, and different condiments from white customers. So, four black students set out to wanting to challenge these laws. Those were David Richmond, Franklin McCann, Isaac Blair Jr., and Joseph McNeil. The four students debated on how they would attract the media's attention, and inspired by the non-violent tactics of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, they set out to do their own. The plan was simple but effective. The four men would sit in seats at the local Woolworths, ask to be served, and when they were denied service, they would not leave. The hope was that news would spread quickly and white people would become scared and black people would become interested and change would happen. Woolworths was a popular retail store that was known for refusing to serve African Americans at its lunch counters. On the 1st of February 1960, the four students entered the shop. They purchased some school supplies and then sat down at the lunch counter. Their argument was going to be that if the store will take their money for school supplies, then they should feed them at their lunch counter. When the students sat down at the white only counter, they were told that they would not be served. The police were called, but the Greensboro force stayed until the store closed at the end of that day. They again came back day and day and day again. By the fifth day, they were joined by 300 other students. By February 7th, the city was filled with 15,000 demonstrators for and against segregation. Bomb threats were received, counter protesters opposing racial integration flung insults and water balloons at the demonstrators. However, the Greensboro Four remained calm and continued to sit at their table, read their textbooks despite any violence. 6 days later, Woolworths was actually forced to close. This simple yet effective method of sitting down by the students was a catalyst that ignited a decade of revolt. Within 2 months, the sit-in movement had spread to 54 cities in 9 different states. So, in Jackson, Mississippi, you can see here that a professor took part in a sit-in with his black students. They were refused service and the crowd began to taunt them, pouring ketchup and mustard over them. Police officers watched and did nothing. In Nashville, Tennessee, between February 13th and May, numerous sit-ins took place. Black students were violently and physically abused, and eventually 150 black students were actually arrested. An agreement was reached on May 10th, and 6 downtown stores agreed to start serving black customers. In South Carolina, February 12th, 100 black students sat at a Woolworths store. To stop any violence, the Woolworths store closed and reopened on the 23rd of February. However, when it reopened, it had removed all the chairs from its lunch counter so that no one could actually sit in the store. In Florida was actually a bit different. 8 black students spent 2.5 hours sat at a Woolworths counter, but the manager was respectful to them. No violence took place. A week later, 11 students tried again, and the students were actually arrested, and again, no violence took place. However, this didn't mean there was no violence in Florida altogether. Black students didn't just take part in sit-ins, they also went to cinemas, which weren't for them, and swimming pools like this one. And this picture became famous as it shows a motel manager pouring hydrochloric acid into the swimming pool where African Americans are swimming. But there was some victory out of all this. Woolworths' profits decreased by a third in the first 2 weeks, so it had to do something about it. It couldn't continue to lose money. Within a year of segregated lunch counters disappeared from 810 towns and cities. This was huge as no official law was actually passed to help change the situation, and it showed the power that people could have, that their change could actually influence the businesses to do something if they could make them lose profit. However, it did not change everywhere. Yes, 810 towns and cities now had black people being able to sit at their lunch counters, but these weren't necessarily in the deep southern states in America.